Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 196 based on novel. So let's start. If Xiao Yan is just an ordinary 5-star fighting emperor, then why should I send Yang Hua and Yang He? As a 9-star fighting emperor, is Yang He still uncertain about dealing with a 5-star fighting emperor? Moreover, Qin Yun is also a 6-star fighting emperor. Does President Fan think I can't deal with an ordinary 5-star fighting emperor with my strength? Qin Yun smiled coldly, and his words were full of accusations and mockery. President Fan keeps saying that I did it on purpose. Even if I did it on purpose, I would be stupid enough to let all my guards go out to expose my purpose. You're just trying to kill people. The boy resisted tenaciously when he saw you trying to kill him. It happened that we came out of the auction house and met this scene. President Fan skimmed his mouth. Although he was not humble, he had biased his guess at the bottom of his heart. But it's also what you said. Xiao Yang is only a 5-star fighting emperor. Even a 9-star fighting emperor can't be an opponent. What's more, in the face of the three, Xiao Yang and the three of them had fought for hundreds of rounds before you came out. According to you, is it possible? Fan Huichang neither wants to believe what I said, nor believes that Xiao Yang's strength is not so on the surface. In my opinion, you want to add sin. Qin Yun is not stingy. Everything he says and does is to force President Fan to the bottom of the valley. Unexpectedly, for a moment, he has nothing to say about it. Even the people behind him are also unhappy and bow their heads. Then you say, with his 5-star fighting emperor, even if his combat power is not weak, how strong can he be? After a good film was carved, President Fan spoke again and said, "Since Chairman Fan doesn't believe it, why don't you try it yourself?" Coincidentally, the three Yang He can't catch Xiao Yang in a short time. With the help of Chairman Fan, we will be able to catch him. Just before that, I hope Chairman Fan can understand how many auctions Qin Yun has participated in Jinyao City. If I wanted to do something, I would have done it long ago. And I'll do it again. Why wait until now? Qin Yun said coldly. Immediately, he turned around with an angry face and looked at Xiao Yang at this time. He sneered. Everything was walking in the direction he expected. Although there were some episodes just now, it was all under his control. In today's battle, he not only wanted Xiao Yang to die, but also got everything from him. What excited him most was, this time, his plan was completed without flaws. Not only did he get Fusang flowers, but also successfully destroyed Jin Yaoqing's moat. Soon, his plan will be able to take further action. Hehe, Fan Siyuan, even if you want to break your head, you can't think of it. Every word you say today is within my expectation. I already know you too well, Gaga, Gaga. Unfortunately, when Qin Yun secretly laughed in his heart, as the guardian of Jin Yaocheng and the president of the Array Mage Association, he is still in the dark. Although Qi Ming has doubts in his heart, Qin Yun's repeated words have also led him to have some doubts about his judgment. Perhaps, all this is really like Qin Yun's saying that Xiao Yang did it. Now, the only person who can prove what Qin Yun said is naturally Xiao Yang. However, unfortunately, he was the one who destroyed the array. Now no one will believe what he said, let alone listen to his explanation. They only believe that Xiao Yang and Qin Yun are together, but they don't think even Xiao Yang is a pawn of them. Then Fan Siyuan wanted to come forward. This matter was related to the reputation of his Array Mage Association. As president, he must come forward in person. President, let me go. It's just a 5-star fighting emperor. You don't have to fight. Qin Yun stopped it last time, but today, let me clean up. This unknown boy who ruined my city protection array. Cheng Zhuhui drank in a low voice and took the initiative to ask for war, and Fan Siyuan also chose to let Cheng Zhuhui fight after some thinking in his heart. In order to prove himself, the 9-star fighting emperor himself will lose face after all. If he tries to test his strength, Cheng Zhuhui, as the 7-star fighting emperor, will undoubtedly be competent for this task. At that time, as long as Cheng Zhuhui catches Xiao Yang, Qin Yun's words will naturally be broken out of thin air. At that time, not only Xiao Yang will die, but also Qin Yun, also have to pay for this. Jin Yaocheng's moat array is a 5-level array. Although it is only a low-level array, it is also extremely powerful. With all its strength, even the strong in the source environment can resist it. For hundreds of years, the Jin Yaocheng Array Mage Association has been able to settle down in Jin Yaocheng without being disturbed by outsiders. But now that the array has been destroyed, the status of the Array Mage Association in Jinyao City is bound to be affected. In the outside world, the hegemonic behavior of the Array Mage Association has established many enemies for themselves over the years. Once they know that the array has been destroyed, if all parties gather here together, even if the 3 giants of the Array Mage Association are the 9-star duty, but they can't guard the people behind them at the same time. At that time, the Array Mage Association will be finished. This is the most unacceptable result in Fan Siyuan's heart. He has worked hard to run the Array Mage Association for so many years, but now he has been defeated in the hands of a young man, which is really unacceptable to him. Therefore, no matter what the result is today, the black-robed young man named Xiao Yan must die. Hiss. With a sharp breaking wind, Cheng Zhehui's body is like a strong wind. In a twinkling of an eye, he has come to Xiao Yan, who is surrounded by 3 people at the moment. Boy, I made you a pill last time. This time, I will never let you go easily again. Like a ghost, his body appeared in front of Xiao Yan. The surging fighting spirit covered Cheng Zhehui's body surface. His strong momentum attracted the attention of many people outside. Even Han Dong, who had been observing secretly, couldn't help sweating for Xiao Yan in his heart. However, compared with them, Yang He, who had been in contact with Xiao Yan for hundreds of rounds, disdained to sneer in their hearts. Although Xiao Yan's strength seems to be far less than them, the combat power shown by the latter is not inferior to that of a village head, the 8-star duty. In particular, his terrible speed is beyond the reach of Yang He and the 3. How can Cheng Zhehui, who is only in the 7-star duty, be Xiao Yan's opponent? Indeed, at the next moment, Xiao Yan, who had been taking the opportunity to recover his fighting spirit in the dark, opened his eyes slightly closed from the beginning. When Cheng Zhehui blew in front of him, his eyes filled with fire suddenly opened. Hiss. In the middle of the air, Cheng Zhehui's powerful fist is pounding Xiao Yan's face. Looking at this, it seems that it means to kill with a blow. Cheng Zhehui wants to take this opportunity to finish the last thing with Xiao Yan. Of course, under the suppression of cultivation, he would not worry about the resistance of the black-robed youth in front of him. He didn't pay attention to the 5-star fighting emperor. However, just below, when everyone saw that Cheng Zhehui's fist was about to fall on Xiao Yan's face, the latter's slightly closed eyes suddenly opened in the next instant. At the same time, a hegemonic momentum overlooking the world suddenly swept out of Xiao Yan's body, just like an invisible wave. Although there was no support of fighting spirit, it was an invisible deterrent, but it was extremely amazing to force Cheng Zhehui, who was already close in front of him, back. Wow! At that time, there was an uproar among the people on the square. At the same time, there was a look of horror in Xiao Yan's eyes. Waste, he hasn't used his fighting spirit yet. Fan Siyuan's old face suddenly became iron blue and couldn't help shouting and scolding. This was in exchange for the laughter and ridicule of more people below. At this time, Cheng Zhehui's expression on his face was particularly ugly. The 3 of Yang He sneered at each other. They were scared away by a look in their eyes. They dared to think of themselves as the strong man of fighting the emperor. Fortunately, they meant to mention that their cultivation was more than 2 stars than the other. It was really a shame for the strong man of fighting the emperor. Bastard, how dare you threaten me to die? Feeling the many mocking eyes, Cheng Zhehui's expression on his old face became more and more ugly. He roared and showed a more turbulent fighting spirit. He wrapped his whole person like a fire. His body moved and attacked Xiao Yan again. In the blink of an eye, the latter's body shape already appeared in front of Xiao Yan. At the same time, his hands shook hard in front of him. Then, with a flash of light between his hands, a golden long gun appeared in Cheng Zhehui's hands. The spear swung violently, and the sharp tip of the spear immediately stabbed Xiao Yan under the ferocious package. The gun tip made a sharp wind-breaking sound when passing through the void. The next moment, It was only a few inches away from Xiao Yang's throat. Until this moment, Xiao Yang seemed to have just reacted. His eyes suddenly raised and stared at Cheng Jiahui, who was close at hand. The cruise of his right leg and the power of terror were gathering rapidly in the dark. Gaga, smelly boy, go to hell. Seeing Xiao Yang's action that seems to be slower than a few beats, Cheng Jiahui sneers even more. The 5-star fighting emperor is the 5-star fighting emperor after all, and can't compete with the strong ones at the 7-star fighting emperor level. Xiao Yang is doomed to lose this war, and the price of losing is his life. At this moment, Han Dong, hiding in the crowd, finally couldn't help it. The fighting spirit in his body ran quickly. Once Xiao Yang was defeated, he would fight immediately. Xiao Yang was the one he invited to join the Herbalist Alliance. His talent in refining medicine was unique in his life. No matter what, don't let Xiao Yang have an accident. However, at the next moment, when the long gun saw that it was about to pierce Xiao Yang's throat, Xiao Yang, with flat eyes, suddenly turned sideways. The terrible speed of movement shocked everyone who saw it, and Cheng Jiahui, who was closest to Xiao Yang, was more shocked than words. How fast is this guy? Hiss. The spear flew close to Xiao Yang's chest and made a hissing sound. Almost at the same time, Xiao Yang suddenly raised his right leg, exerted his strength on his lower leg, and stood on his side. At the same time, a heavy whip leg suddenly lifted up and mercilessly bombarded Cheng Jiahui's chest. For a moment, the pupil in Cheng Jiahui's eye suddenly contracted to the size of a needle. Then, his body, in the eyes of a large group of people in the square, was like a football. In a dull collision sound, he was kicked out heavily. Then, Cheng Jiahui, who flew upside down, destroyed a large number of houses under the terrible force, and finally hit a huge stone. Then with a puff, Cheng Jiahui's face quickly turned white. What terrible physical strength! People looked at Cheng Jiahui, who flew out upside down. Then they turned their eyes to Xiao Yang. Then, there was a sound of swallowing saliva in the field. All eyes filled with horror stared at Xiao Yang in the field. The shock in everyone's heart was even more unparalleled. They could not imagine that Cheng Jiahui, as a 7-star fighting emperor, would be blown out by a 5-star fighting emperor. Moreover, looking at Cheng Jiahui's state at the moment, although he was immortal, Xiao Yang's attack just now also caused him a lot of damage. 7-star fighting emperor, but so. Xiao Yang's face was cold and his tone hissed. Cough. Boy, don't be too proud. I was just careless and underestimated you, but next time, you won't have such good luck. Standing up in confusion, Cheng Jiahui wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth. As soon as his big hand called, the gold gun obliquely inserted on the ground in the distance quickly returned to his hand. Then his body moved and rushed to Xiao Yang again. Spirit-level low-level fighting skills, flying shadows. A loud drink burst out of Cheng Jiahui's mouth. Immediately, the golden gun in his hand suddenly shook violently. A large area of gun shadow immediately fell madly towards Xiao Yang like dense raindrops. Whoosh, whoosh. The dense gun shadow is falling on Xiao Yang's head. Each gun shadow will leave a distorted vacuum when passing through the void. When this large gun shadow passes, the invisible void is almost distorted and broken. Then Cheng Jiahui's body comes to Xiao Yang again. The front of the gun points directly at Xiao Yang and stabs the latter's head. However, in the face of Cheng Jiahui's attack, Xiao Yang's face was still very flat. His eyes stared at the large and chaotic gun shadow shot in front of him. In the center of his eyebrows, huge soul power suddenly poured out. Everything in heaven and earth became clear in his eyes. At the same time, the chaotic gun shadow slowed down. Whoosh! Xiao Yang's body was slightly sideways, and a gun shadow flew out of the latter's body, and then turned his body again. His steps were either to the left or to the right. His body leaned forward and backward, turned sideways, and moved forward. He would look at the gun shadow that was about to fall on him and avoid it perfectly. Even those who could not be avoided were also smashed by Xiao Yang in the simplest and domineering way. This kind of body method is like a ghost. Even those high-ranking fighting emperors and powerful people in the appearance war are also shocked by it. Is this really just what a 5-star fighting emperor can do? Such a strange body method, Even some of them are not sure that they can successfully capture the latter's body shape. At this moment, even Fan Siyuan and others can't help sinking in their hearts. From this method alone, it can be seen that Cheng Zhuhui is not Xiao Yang's opponent. Now the only thing they can expect is that Cheng Zhuhui's next attack is expected to suppress Xiao Yang. After solving the countless gun shadows, what Xiao Yang has to face is Cheng Zhuhui himself. Seeing that Xiao Yang had so easily avoided his fighting skills, Cheng Zhuhui was both surprised and angry. A cold sweat kept coming out from his forehead, but now he had to be on the line. At present, he can only harden his head and place his hope on his next attack. Waving the long gun with both hands, the gun body swings and stabs the key points of Xiao Yang's whole body with fierce momentum. The spear edge is cunning like a poisonous snake. The dragon goes to sea. When the spear danced, the vigorous fighting spirit quickly condensed on the surface of the spear and turned into a virtual shadow of a 100-foot dragon snake. With the pouring of fighting spirit, it quickly solidified. Then, the dragon snake twisted its huge body and burst into Xiao Yang with a startling roar. Xiao Yang looked calmly at the huge dragon snake. He didn't mean to dodge at all. He sneered at the corners of his mouth, bent his hand into claws, and thought. The dragon phoenix ancient armor immediately covered the whole palm, and the forest white flame also lingered up at the same time. Soon, when the dragon snake came in front of him, he leaned out and moved as fast as lightning. He stubbornly controlled the dragon snake in front of him. Then, in Cheng Zhuhui's shocked eyes, his palm suddenly forced, but he stubbornly crushed the dragon snake in front of him. A mere dragon snake is just an earthworm in front of the dragon. The dragon snake was destroyed, and the spear under it was held by Xiao Yang. A sneer appeared on Xiao Yang's face. The momentum was not weak, but it was basically useless on the premise of his determination of power and Long Huang's ancient armor and different fire. When the Jiao snake was broken, Cheng Zhuhui's face finally changed dramatically. He wanted to take back the golden gun, but he found that the weapon in his hand was tightly controlled by Xiao Yang and could not be taken back at all. Damn it! He scolded with hatred in his heart. Cheng Zhuhui simply gave up his long gun and suddenly retreated. At the time of its sudden retreat, his hands were also raised rapidly, with 10 fingers linked, and the fingerprints were made like lightning. The familiar and cumbersome knots were made continuously, and in the twinkling of an eye, they condensed into a huge energy fingerprint in front of him. Pluto seal. As soon as the seal was sacrificed, Cheng Zhuhui burst out loud in his mouth. The surging fighting spirit in his body was frantically injected into the energy handprint in front of him, which shocked the light on it. It was like an obsidian sun, emitting dazzling white light, and wanted to blow it out at Xiao Yang. Click. At the next moment, there was a clear click sound on the energy handprint, followed by clear cracks, which quickly climbed up the whole energy handprint. Bang! In the middle of the air, Cheng Zhuhui looked blankly at the suddenly broken energy fingerprints in front of him. His already pale face became bloodless in an instant, and the whole person's breath suddenly fell to the bottom of the valley. The Pluto seal just condensed out suddenly disappeared. The sudden reverse bite of that energy made him seriously injured in an instant. How? Cheng Zhuhui fell limply to the ground and looked up hard. Then he saw that when the energy fingerprints dispersed, Xiao Yang's body slowly appeared in his sight. The latter at this time. He still kept the appearance when he punched, but the seal of Hades in front of him had been forcibly smashed by him at the moment. Seeing this scene, Cheng Zhuhui was even more frightened. Although Pluto seal was not a powerful fighting skill, it was also one of his few cards. However, in the hands of the black-robed youth in front of him, he couldn't hold up a blow, and the most incredible thing was that the other party was just a 5-star fighting emperor. How is it possible? At this moment, Cheng Zhuhui's heart could not help but set off a storm. The change of mood made his already serious injury more serious. At the same time, Xiao Yang took back his fist. When his palm was covered by his sleeve robe, it could be clearly seen that a trace of blood gradually emerged. After all, it's the 7-star fight emperor. Xiao Yang paid a lot to make it a deterrent. Now when Xiao Yang looked up, sure enough, many people present were immersed in the memory of Xiao Yang's powerful fist. Of course, several people were exceptions, such as the strong 9-star fight emperor. Nevertheless, at this time, they are still a little distracted. Seeing this, Xiao Yang suddenly sneered. If he didn't go at this time, when would he stay? At this time, Fan Siyuan stared at Xiao Yang with a pair of turbid eyes. In the depths of his eyes, there was also an indelible color of shock. At the same time, his heart also affirmed Qin Yun's statement. This boy, what a terrible fighting power. I'm afraid that blow just now is not inferior to the ordinary 8-star duty. With Xiao Yang's strike just now, he can already be sure that Xiao Yang's combat power is definitely far beyond his accomplishments. Fan Siyuan's eyes narrowed and thought more carefully, and his shock became more and more serious. Now Xiao Yang is just a 5-star fighting emperor. He already has such terrible combat power. It's hard to imagine that if he keeps on like this, when his cultivation goes further in the future, he won't even be his opponent. In this way, Fan Siyuan's heart raised a sense of killing Xiao Yang. Today, both Xiao Yang and their actions are destined to push them to the opposite. Therefore, for the future of their array mage association, today, he must kill Xiao Yang here and never suffer from it. Whoosh! However, at the next moment, at the moment when Fan Siyuan raised his eyes, Xiao Yang's figure turned into a breeze and flew away rapidly outside Jinyao City at a lightning speed. If you want to go, it's not that easy. Stay with me. Fan Siyuan uttered a low cry. A group of people behind him suddenly regained consciousness and moved. They took the two people beside them and pursued Xiao Yang in the direction of leaving. At the same time, Yang He and his 3 people hurriedly caught up with Qin Yun. Today, Xiao Yang must die here anyway. The black robe covered Xiao Yang's whole body and completely wrapped his breath. His body was wrapped by the flowing wind and flew forward rapidly. The whole person was hidden in the flowing wind. He didn't see his body shape or smell. He could only feel a hurricane roaring through the void. As usual, almost no one would be curious about it, but at the moment, Fan Siyuan and others knew clearly that Xiao Yang's body must be in the flowing wind. What they have to do now is to surround the flowing wind. Qi Minghua is fierce. Start the array and stop him. Fan Siyuan gave a sharp drink. At the same time, Qi Ming and others behind him nodded heavily after hearing the order. They looked at each other and quickly swept forward. At the same time, cumbersome seals broke out rapidly between their hands. At the same time, the golden runes on the wall of Jinyao City suddenly emitted a burst of bright light at the moment, and then, a huge golden curtain of light rose again and surrounded the whole Jinyao City. The sudden appearance of this scene shocked everyone in the city, especially Qin Yun. He prepared so much to destroy this array. Why is this thing still here now? Didn't the array be destroyed at all? Is that stone pillar fake? Qin Yun was shocked. He couldn't believe that the 3 old guys had guarded the stone pillar for so many years. Were they all made on purpose? That stone pillar is not the center of this array at all. Young lord, no, it doesn't seem to be that array. It's strange. Just when Qin Yun was shocked, Yang He seemed to notice something. He frowned and whispered to Qin Yun. Is it weird? Make it clear. Although this array seems to have not changed, if you carefully explore it, you can find that the power of this array has been significantly reduced by more than half. It seems that this is not a 5th-order array. It should be blessed by themselves. The purpose should be to prevent this situation. Yang He said, and Qin Yun soon found the strangeness of this array. At present, he was a little relieved. On the other side, with the opening of the array, Xiao Yang, who had seen that he was about to leave Jinyaocheng, was forced to slow down at the moment, while Fan Siyuan and others also caught up, followed by Qin Yun and his party. A group of people surrounded the emptiness in front of them with cautious eyes. Fan Siyuan released his huge soul power and swept through the emptiness in front of him. Sure enough, Xiao Yang in black was exposed. In front of a 4th-order array mage, Xiao Yang really can't hide his body anymore. The Void Avenue can only ensure that his breath will not be found, but the concealment of his body shape cannot be maintained. Xiao Yang has not had too many accidents for the current situation. What makes him care about is the rising array again. Fortunately, under his exploration, he soon found that this is only a 4th-order defense array. If so, maybe, he still has a chance. Over Jinyao City, the bright golden light rises high and condenses into a huge energy barrier, which wraps up the whole Jinyao City and prevents people from entering and leaving. In the emptiness of the city, the 7 shadows held one side respectively, surrounded Xiao Yang in the middle. Xiao Yang, although our array mage association is incompatible with your alliance of medicine refiners, it is well water that does not invade the river recently. Do you want to declare war with our array mage association? Fan Siyuan stared at Xiao Yang with muddy old eyes and shouted in a low voice. If he can, he doesn't want to really fall out with the Alliance of Alchemists. After all, the Alliance of Alchemists is a branch of Dantar and is directly managed by Dantar. Once he goes to war with it, he is against Dantar. Dantar, that's the most powerful force recognized in the whole continent. Although their association of mags and the alliance of herbalists have never been at odds, they have never reached such a field as they are now. Today, Xiao Yang destroyed the city protection array of Jinyao City. It was a 5-level array. This alone has worsened the relationship between them in an instant. President Fan, why do you talk to such people? I thought this guy was gifted and could make friends, but I didn't expect that it was Qin Yun who made you do such a treacherous thing. No matter what today, I will take your life to repay your sins. However, before Xiao Yang could speak, Qin Yun beside Yang He stared at Xiao Yang with cold eyes and shouted with sharp words. Fan Siyuan and others frowned slightly when they said this. Although Qin Yun said this generously, they always felt a trace of discomfort in their ears, just like a bloodthirsty jackal suddenly becoming docile, which made people feel cold in their hearts. But without waiting for them to think more, Qin Yun waved a big hand and ordered the 3 Yang He beside him to attack Xiao Yang. As for Qin Yun himself, he stayed where he was and looked on coldly on the premise of ensuring his own safety. At the same time, the fighting spirit in his body was always ready. Once he had the opportunity, he would give Xiao Yang a fatal blow. Hiss, hiss. The 3 figures shot at Xiao Yang from 3 directions. The sound of hunting was heard all the time. The 3 powerful momentum blended with each other around Xiao Yang and became one, making the already powerful momentum even more frightening. In the face of such a lineup, Xiao Yang couldn't help frowning and showed a dignified color on his face. Just now, in order to clean up Cheng Zhuohui, he has consumed a lot of physical strength, and the purpose of not using fighting spirit is to face the situation at the moment. However, he did not expect that the result would be much more troublesome than he expected. So it seems that these 3 people didn't do their best before. The purpose is to drag Fan Siyuan to see that scene. In order to let Fan Siyuan see the destruction of the moat in front of Xiao Yang, Qin Yun deliberately asked Yang He and his 3 men to reserve. Now, Qin Yun's goal has been achieved, and they naturally don't need to continue to retain their strength. As long as they kill Xiao Yang here, they really don't worry about what Fan Siyuan will do to them. Although the Array Mage Association is not weak, it is just a small witch in front of the forces behind Qin Yun. Gaga, Gaga, Xiao Yang, I failed to clean you up before. Now we have 6 9-star fighting emperors. I don't believe it. What can I do with you alone? Ha ha, I'd better surrender as soon as possible so as not to suffer from the flesh. The 3 sneered. The surging fighting spirit swept out of the 3 people's bodies like a wave, and rushed at Xiao Yang like an overwhelming storm. Drink. In this regard, Xiao Yang was also afraid of the slightest carelessness. He gave a loud drink at the bottom of his heart, and his body was suddenly shocked at the same time. In the cyclone, the fierce forest white flame immediately lingered and quickly covered Xiao Yang's whole body. Almost at the same time, Yang He and his 3 men also came to Xiao Yang. Each of them fell heavily against Xiao Yang's body. The surging fighting spirit covered the whole palm. The strong force made a sharp sound when crossing the void. Then, they were about to fall. Whoosh. Also at this time, Xiao Yang's steps changed, and Tianju's step was displayed, trying his best to avoid the joint attack of the 3. The 3 figures surrounded Xiao Yang's body. This time, even if there was a barrier of different fire, they didn't retreat easily. Therefore, in this close distance, even if Xiao Yang had Tianju's step, they couldn't completely avoid the attack of these 3 people. Therefore, although Xiao Yang finally avoided several key points on his body, he was slapped on his left shoulder and back. Even with the protection of different fire, the bombardment of the two 9-star fighting emperors still made Xiao Yang's face pale for a moment. Hum. His nose couldn't help but let out a stuffy hum. Xiao Yang flashed back Yang He, who was close at hand. Then, his body retreated quickly. When his throat rolled, a trace of blood couldn't help flowing down from the corner of his mouth. Damn it, this is their real strength. He scolded reluctantly in his heart, but he didn't wait for Xiao Yang to breathe. Then Qi Ming and Huolier of the Array Mage Association rushed in like a sharp arrow, but in the twinkling of an eye, they had appeared in front of Xiao Yang. Boy, die. A ferocious drink came out of Huolai's mouth, and his whole body sent out a strong smell of flame. He rushed to Xiao Yang. Qi Ming on one side is more rapid. When he flies, the strong wind swims backward from his side, and the wind rolls involuntarily condense around Qi Ming. From this point, it is not difficult to see that the latter is a strong person with wind attribute. Blazing palm, wind and clouds. With the sound of two big drinks, Qi Ming and Huolier appeared in front of Xiao Yang. They each showed their powerful fighting skills and roared at Xiao Yang. Drink. Once again, Xiao Yang shouted loudly in his heart. This time, Xiao Yang retreated while madly condensing the huge soul power in the center of his eyebrows. In this kind of battle, even the soul power is also a major means for Xiao Yang to fight at the moment. Even if the war result is not big, it is also one of the few forces Xiao Yang can use to mobilize now. Of course, while mobilizing the soul power, the fighting spirit in the cyclone in the body is also gathering madly at the moment. Xiao Yang clearly knows that relying on a soul fighting skill alone cannot resist the joint efforts of the two people in front of him. Only a strong enough fighting skill can stop them temporarily. If he wants to solve all these problems temporarily, I'm afraid he needs more powerful fighting skills. Buddha Anger Lotus. It's just a pity that the current situation has left Xiao Yang helpless. He must fight for it. While fighting back these people in front of him, he must find a way to condense the lotus of Buddha's anger. At that time, the appearance of Buddha's anger lotus will certainly be able to repel these people temporarily. At the same time, it is also the only way for Xiao Yang to break the 4-level array behind him. However, just when Xiao Yang was thinking about how to solve the situation in front of him, Fan Siyuan, who was behind Xiao Yang at the moment, the palm under his sleeve robe was slightly curved, and the strong fighting spirit was quietly condensed in the palm. This video will end here.